Hello and welcome to Stratnews Global and welcome to The Gist, our signature show on foreign affairs. Our topic for this evening is the Indo-US cooperation in fighting the COVID surge in India. And I have with me all the way from Washington, D.C., Dr. Mukesh Aghi. He is the President and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, a platform which is doing a lot of outreach for India in terms of mobilizing and coordinating with the US and Indian governments and tapping the resources and the expertise available in the US and Indian business community. Dr. Aghi, welcome. Glad to have you.
Pleasure.
Dr. Aghi, let's come to our first question. Let's have some details about the Partnership Forum. It's a fairly recent organization, isn't it?
No, we were formed in 2017, and the objective was that we need an independent institution between India and the US, which looks at broadly every aspect of the relationship, from geopolitical to economic to health to student visa issue to H-1B. And while the administration and government change, we want the institution to stay on. So that was formed. We have 43 chairman of companies who are board members, and is chaired by John Chambers, former chairman of Cisco.
So, when was it that you began? When was it that you began your outreach for India? Was it on the basis of the U.S. government sending you a request? Or was it some outreach from the Indian embassy in the U.S.? How did this work out?
So I think we all have what I call as friends and families in India, and we were getting messages that things are getting difficult and dire straight. So before government could react from the US side, we basically started organizing, and we realized that one thing which will get impacted is the healthcare infrastructure, and that means trying to prevent people to going to the hospitals. And so early on, we started sourcing and getting commitments to get oxygen concentrators coming to India itself. And that means locking in factories, locking in supplies. And I think that was a good decision we made. And today we started moving a lot of the stuff into India itself.
How is it dealing with the U.S. government? Is it a single window kind of thing? Do you liaise with multiple agencies? How does it work?
So I think, just like any large government, you have multiple agencies to deal with. And in this case, what we saw was that there was no reaction from the Biden administration. So we had to reach out to them. We wrote to them, told them that the sentiment in India on the US is turning negative. US needs to step up and support India. And you have to understand one thing is last year when US was in trouble, India was the first country to supply medicines to the US. And I thought it is time for US to reciprocate that help US received from India last year itself. So I think once we sent the message, they got it. The US government reacted very fast and started moving shipments to India.
Any particular challenges or obstacles you faced, in the whole process of getting things together?
Well, you always have challenges. I think it's not about trying to get the funding going. It's about trying to get the factories humming stronger, faster, increasing the capacity. And once that happens, then you focus on trying to get the logistics. And then when you bring the stuff to India, you have to deal with the customs and the bureaucracy there.
Yeah.
And so it's a little needing time, but I think now we have a process which is getting efficient every day.
And any issues with the U.S. Embassy approaching you guys? You had any outreach over there?
No, absolutely. I think we work very closely with the US Embassy. They have been a partner in this whole process. They'll be very supportive where we need help. And I have to say that we're working very closely with the government of India. So you have an empowered group of bureaucrats who have been assigned to lead the COVID task force. led by Amitabh Kant. And so we do have a conversation with the Empowered Group. We calibrate on a daily basis with them and also with the ambassador here, see how supplies needs are shifting. On that basis, we also fine tune our supplies going to India itself. So I think there's a very close coordination between with the U.S. government, with the U.S. embassy, Indian embassy, and also the Niti Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant on his team.
And Dr. Aghi, do you see any parallels between what is happening today in India and what happened in the US some months ago when it was tremendous infection deaths were rising?
It is the same. I think it's not just in the US. You look at what happened in Italy, you look at what happened in France. The second wave, third wave were much more aggressive. And I think in the US, they were able to mobilize the ships, hospitals, and opening the convention centers to put beds there. So the whole infrastructure came under a lot of stress. And what we saw in the US was that it is a very strong public-private partnership. We had uh, doctors, we had EM workers coming in from different parts of the states to New York City to support the crisis itself. And we are seeing the same parallel process taking place in India, where the infrastructure is collapsed. And so we just want to make sure we're able to provide right devices, right medicine, and right support, and don't become a roadblock anywhere to support so India can come out of this crisis.
Mhm. Tell me, in this entire outreach that is going on and the help from the US, are we looking at something a little more permanent down the line?
So I think you have to look at the short term and the mid to long term. I think the short term is that let's get oxygen devices into India because every hour you are more efficient, you save more lives. So we have moved in at the moment around 11 cryonic oxygen tanks, 1 ton each, from geographies such as Bangkok, Dubai, Singapore. We have identified another 10. We're working with the US Air Force to see if they can airlift those to India. And then we have committed to deliver 100,000 oxygen concentrators. And there's a daily shipment of between 750 to 1250 is coming into India. Yes, we still have logistic challenges there because 1,000 of those weigh around 1.5 ton. So there's capacity issues in planes also. But that's moving along. I think in the long term, there is a potential partnership between India and the US. And when I say long term, because you cannot vaccinate countries in isolation and the rest of the world is not vaccinated.
Yeah,
Because unless the
absolutely.
world is vaccinated, this pandemic cannot be handled. And I think that's where US and India can play a pivotal role because India has the capacity to make billions of vaccines. US can provide financial support plus IPR support, and India can it produces vaccine at a very affordable price. So in the long term, I see the relationship moving in vaccine partnership, vaccine diplomacy. Unless you vaccinate the world, we will not all be safe.
Do you think there's any solution to this issue, to India's demand or request that the IPR be made available freely to other manufacturers of the vaccine?
That's a challenging issues because I think you have to understand you have pharma companies which spend billions of dollars developing this product, and at the same time you have a world which is in crisis. And so there is a discussion going on in Washington, D.C., how to handle this. In fact, all the principals in the White House are meeting today to have that discussion itself. And then Catherine Tai, the USTR chief, this week sometime will start having a conversation with WTO to how to handle that. But I think it is a challenging issue, and you have to find the right balance. While you're trying to protect the interest of the IPR owners, we also have to look at how do you protect lives, the world itself.
And this entire vaccine effort in the US, is it free to all citizens?
Absolutely. In fact, today what we have is Vaccine is easily available. You can walk into any center as long as you're 16 and above and get vaccinated. In fact, in some states, states like West Virginia, they're giving incentive $100 if you get vaccinated. So the supply and demand, the gap is getting bigger, and we expect by July, US will have approximately 300 million plus excess vaccines in the country.
And would you say this is the one of the major vaccination drives that the US has carried out?
Yeah, when you look at the overall, what we are seeing is around 32% of the population has got double vaccination, fully vaccination, and then around 44% of the population has had single dosage. US still has a lot of way to go, but what we are seeing also is around 25% of the population does not want to get vaccinated. And I think that's where the challenge is going to come in. How do you convince them that it's the right thing to do? And so I think that's where we'll see a uphill task for the government and state level and central level to get the country vaccinated.
Based on the experience that we've got through this COVID effort, do you see India and the US coordinating and working together in perhaps pandemics or epidemics in other parts of the world?
No, absolutely. I think you have to understand the US India relationship is becoming much more broader, is becoming much more deeper. There is a dependency on each other. India, if it's going to get its economy going to 5 trillion or 10 trillion, it will need trillions of dollars in investment and more, and also technology. And that's where what we see US companies will step up. Also, you have to look at it from a geopolitical perspective. India is one country which can stand up to China, and I think US will need that Quad partnership to get deeper itself. So I believe the relationship will move forward in a positive way, where it's going to support each other's uh, needs, which in a crisis time, but also economic growth and prosperity for both countries.
Last question, Dr. Aghi. Um, there was this period when India's initial request for help came up with a rather indifferent response from the US government. Now, how do you explain that? I mean,
I think you have to understand when the request came, the Biden administration so much focused on the climate summit, dealing with 40 plus head of states itself. And obviously, it fell through some of the bureaucratic process. But when we raised the issue, when we went down, they reacted very, very positively. So I think sometimes it's not the intent, it is the process which kind of delays it. When we talk to the White House or to the State Department or Department of Defense and the Congress leadership, the sentiment is very, very strong for India. And I think the current crisis, the pictures coming out, the stories coming out, there's a lot of sympathy to support India. And mind out, I just want to emphasize the U.S. outreach to India is not a handout. It is a, a helping a friend during time of need, just like India helped U.S. in its time of need when India needed medicines from, or the U.S. needed medicine from India. So it is an equal partnership, and I think the leadership here wants to do what it can at an urgent pace, and we are seeing things moving very, very fast.
do you believe it may have affected the Indo-US relationship at some level? There's a lot of there are sections in the Indian government that remain distrustful of the US even today. Do you believe that initial delay in responding may have fueled some of those, fears?
I think initially I saw a lot of social media reaction to this. And once things started moving into India, when U.S. government reacted, and you started seeing supplies coming in, and the U.S. had planes landing in, that has kind of dissipated. Uh, will it leave a doubt? I don't know, but I think what we're seeing is a sense of urgent desire to support India. I can tell you, I am inundated with calls, email, text to see what can we do to help India. You have to understand one thing: the rise of India is not seen as a threat to the world, whereas rise of China is seen as a threat. And the other factor you have to understand, a prosperous India is good for America and American companies. So it is in the interest of the United States to make sure that India not only just comes out of this COVID crisis, but also prospers economically. And I think there's a lot of humanitarian desire to support it. So to answer your question, I believe that initially there were anti-US sentiment, but that has disappeared, and I think all hands are on the deck to make sure that India gets what it needs.
On that positive note, Dr. Aghi, we'll end this conversation. Pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time. And let's hope we can build on something far more permanent from this outreach operation that we just witnessed. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I think there's an opportunity in every crisis, and we have an opportunity now to build this relationship, and we look forward to enhancing it further between the two countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aghi. Pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure.